Well, hey there, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am your host, Janeen Ali, and you are listening to Becoming the CEO of Your Life today. And we are talking about not rushing around, not racing around to meet the deadlines that we've created for ourselves as we are building our dreams. So, on the podcast, I specifically talk about how to develop unapologetic self trust and how to show up with unwavering conviction in yourself and in the message that you are here to share with the world. And one of the things that we do as go getters and as goal getters is we love to set deadlines. We love to work towards those deadlines, but often it creates this feeling of racing and rushing and stress and sometimes frustration when those deadlines aren't met. So that is what we are talking about today on the show. If you're new to the show, welcome. I'm super grateful that you are here with me today. So, like I mentioned, rushing around is one of the biggest mistakes that we can make. And I do have to share before we get started on the material today that I've been debating about what to call this show. Like, what is going to be the title of this episode today? And I've had that Taylor Dayne song stuck in my head all week, Don't Rush Me. And how she goes, I've made that mistake before. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. So there you go. There's my little Taylor Danes for you today. All right. So, on that note, let's dive into this. Yeah. So, like I was saying, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making is feeling like there is an actual deadline for the dream and then using that deadline to kind of flog themselves forward when things are not materializing in the way that they hoped or expected or feel like they should, which is kind of where we get ourselves into a problem. So don't get me wrong, you guys know I'm all about setting goals. But if we don't do this the right way, we often feel like we're impatient, like I said, stressed, frustrated, like all these things with our progress, when it feels like even the message is taking some time to come through, or the results that we'd like are taking longer than they should. And then we get all worked up. And this, of course, is going to end up blocking our creativity. It's going to end up creating more of a problem on the back end when we get frustrated that things are not manifesting themselves like the way that we picture them in our minds. And we end up starting to think in a very small box, like things have to happen this way and it's got to be just right or whatever it is. And we move into that fight or flight space. This is why this is the problem, is because we become dysregulated. We think we have 100 things to do, right? When in reality, we only have really 2 or 3 things that need to get done to really move the needle. And so we're not really thinking clearly when we're in this space. And it's really hard to connect to our highest thinking when we're here because that sympathetic nervous system has activated and we've moved more into that survival fight or flight space. And we might even get ourselves to calm down periodically, but then we start to get worked up all over again about things. And it kind of creates this pattern, right? Where we have days where we're feeling really good and super calm because we have taken some time for ourselves, but then our brains start to just work on this spin. And like I said, this, I have to get this done. What if this doesn't happen? And all these things. That's not helpful, right? So we want to avoid that. And I'm going to talk about how to do that today in the podcast. I'm going to give you some really tangible, tactical things to think about to keep yourself out of that fight or flight space. Because life in general, right? Definitely going for a dream, it's often going to be a very windy road with many unexpected twists and turns along the way. And if we're getting our knickers in a twist, when something happens, we make it mean a lot of things like I'm on the wrong track, or this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing clearly with my time because XYZ things are going to happen, or I must have gotten the wrong message about even doing this in general. Instead of, oh, okay, I didn't realize that this was going to be a part of it. So now what am I going to do? And feeling a lot more open and seeing things in more of a broader picture instead of kind of forcing your agenda into reality. And when we do that, we become very rigid and very inflexible. So there is this balance that we're trying to strike of moving forward. And of course, not being so lackadaisical that nothing happens, right? But at the same time, you want to be able to take a result or an outcome and be flexible in our approach to tweak something until we get it right. And so there needs to be this rigid flexibility where we're still showing up, we create a plan and we work towards that plan. But when things don't go as planned, as they often do, we still need to be in that flexible, creative space to even solve the problem. And that is the piece that gets shut down when we start to move into fight or flight, when we're using those deadlines as like, oh my gosh, this isn't happening in the way that I want it to happen. Okay, so what are some of the solutions that I've used to help myself to stay out of that space? So the first thing is I am seeking to discover, okay, what is the rush? Like seriously, what are you currently thinking about? What are you making things mean? And why are you thinking about it like that? And not from like, why are you thinking about it that way? But no, really, like, why are you thinking about it like that? And stay in that space of curiosity with my experience about it. And of course, always being very compassionate. And I know that I say this all the time, but you really have to be in that space of, okay, what is really going on here? And slowing yourself down to the point where you are thinking about what you're thinking about and why you're thinking about those things. And you don't need to go back to when you were 7 years old and something happened. You just need to be aware that you're doing it and start to just soften and relax. As soon as you start listening to yourself, you start to switch into more of a parasympathetic state. You start to tone down and dim down that fight, flight, or freeze response. So, like I said, the thoughts that I'm looking for are I have to get this done, or this has got to be done by this deadline, or whatever. And I just take a moment to, of course, pause and explore this. So, of course, the model, the thought work that I talk about all the time on the podcast is going to come in really handy here. All right. The next thing that I do is I stay very present with myself right now, because once I start getting on that racing, rushing thought pattern, it feels like I've hopped on a runaway train. I'm just like full steam ahead into the future, catastrophizing about the worst possible things that are going to happen. Right. And I'm making a lot of things mean like, okay, if I'm seeing this pattern, this is going to perpetuate into the future, which none of that stuff is true. And so instead of being way out there, either in the past or even in the future, I am bringing myself into this present moment and reminding myself that I'm fine right now. I really am. I'm fine right now. I am taken care of. I've always been taken care of. And I just take the time to just have that conversation with me. You are 100% fine right now. And the truth is you are going to continue to have a house. You are going to continue to eat food. Like, if that's the conversation that needs to take place, right? It kind of depends on where I'm at, right? But this is a really helpful conversation to have, to just take yourself to this present moment. I'm fine right now. Okay. The third thing that has really worked well for me is you have the ability to change your circumstances if you need to. So, for example, if money is an issue, if you are trying to create something new for income that you feel like you need, and right now it's not coming in at the rate that you would like it to, you can get a part-time job in order to calm your brain down. So you want to think about a way that you can create a financial base so that you're not racing around. I am currently doing something that I love that would check this box. I coach for a nonprofit organization called the Commit Foundation that helps people transition out of the military. And it's the perfect fit for me. I just get to show up, I get to teach, I get to coach. It's amazing. I'm doing this with a dear, dear friend of mine that I've known for 15 years. It's really, really fun for me and it's amazing. And I can have the flexibility in my life to not only be with my family, but also continue to coach my own clients and continue to build my own business. And it's exciting because that is growing, my business is growing, and I'm just in a really, really good place. But you want to think about, okay, what do I need to do to create enough to have a base pay to not only pay my business bills, if you've got, like I said, the side hustle like I do going on at the same time I have an actual side job. I would say a part-time job. It's not really a side job, it's a part-time job. But you want to have enough to pay your base pay on bills on either side of that, and then pay yourself. And for me, my husband's income covers all of our living expenses, so I don't need to worry about that. But businesses take money to grow and they take money to maintain. And so if you are looking for a space and a way to make some income, you can divide and conquer certain funds in order to make that happen. So if your side hustle is your only thing right now, you might consider doing that. And I would also encourage you to not only pay your bills, pay yourself, but periodically give yourself a raise. Because once I started doing this, it was amazing how my income rose to the occasion because my expectations and thoughts shifted around. So that is just something to consider and something to think about if this is something that you are currently stressing about. I have to reach this deadline in order to eat. I have to reach this deadline in order to stay in my house. I don't think that a lot of you are in that space, but our brains have a tendency to create stories that make it feel like that. And so if you just know for sure, I don't need to worry about that because I have this income base that I can count on, then you're in a good spot. Okay. All right. The last thing is you want to focus on feeling abundant. I have mentioned this multiple times over the last several months because it works and it works well. And I've been doing it and it's been amazing. You want to focus on gratitude and the things that you know to be true. Like I said, I am fine right now. So you want to do things that help you to feel good. And that for me is moving my body, taking good care of myself, being with other people, serving, like all of those things help me to feel good. And it's not to bury your worry or stress. You don't want to use this as a buffer, but you do want to focus on feeling really, really amazing because when you feel good, then you're in this space of problem solving and creativity that's going to help you to get to the deadline, maybe sooner than you're thinking when you are, like I said, kind of spinning in the catastrophizing story. All right, my friends, this is a shorty episode today because it's been kind of a short week. I was out picking my son up at college and I'm doing Monday things on a Wednesday this week, which sometimes we do, but this is what I have time for today. So I hope that this episode was helpful and it was power packed and what you needed to hear this week. And I will catch you guys next week. Oh, don't forget, if you haven't booked your 15-minute unwavering woman assessment, book that with me right now. You can go to janeenalley.com/CEO to book a 15-minute call with me. I would love to connect and talk to you about how you can build this skill of conviction in what it is that you are doing, because it is a skill. This is something that we can learn, and it really does make all of the difference in how you show up and how you create. All right, you guys have a beautiful rest of your week, and we will talk to you guys soon. We'll see ya. Bye-bye.